All right. Hello and welcome everyone to Mission Matters. We have a lovely guest today, a good friend of mine, but tell you a little bit about our speaker, who is Gail Bauer. She's the founder and president of Bauer and Company Consulting. They're a strategy firm that works with mission-driven organizations like Habitat for Humanity to leverage their social and environmental goals to become profitable, trusted, and beloved brands. So she's also writing a book, and the forthcoming Money and Mission, which is the partnership to engage employees, customers, and communities while driving business growth, and how to jumpstart your sponsorship strategy in tough times. I like to think that maybe Habitat Mondelco had a little bit of inspiration for this work. Gail came to assist us in January of 2021 in the height of the pandemic, and had come in and just been an incredible partner, helped us create some systems and strategies to help us reach our goals. So I am forever indebted to Gail Bauer for helping bring us through to I think we're on the other side of this pandemic, at least from an operational standpoint here at Habitat. And without further ado, I introduce you, Gail. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rebecca. That was a lovely introduction. Thank you so much to everyone who's here today, and to everyone at Habitat who had some role in making today's event the success that it's going to be. So what a few years it has been. Holy moly. We have had just so much going on, and I don't even need to go into a whole long list. But what I will say is that I became very curious about what all of these issues that were reverberating in our communities around racial justice and health and wellness and environment and so on had on what corporations were thinking about, and how they were modifying or updating or evolving their social and environmental goals. And so through that curiosity, I launched a qualitative study at the end of last year and interviewed lots of people across different segments of society and different departments. So they were marketing directors and or heads of marketing, heads of sales, the C-suite, heads of HR, legal counsel, etc., mostly from B2B companies, architecture, engineering, consulting, banking, manufacturing, legal, insurance. So a wide swath of our culture and our business segment to really understand what was going on. And I'm happy to send everybody the insight paper that I'm putting together right now. But I want to focus on a couple areas that came up, and a couple things that came up, because there's some really interesting data that I want to talk about today, and talk about how continuing to move forward in these areas, continuing to further commit, can help your organization not only become a beloved brand, a more profitable brand, a more trusted brand, not only by customers, but also the people in your four walls, the employees who you already have and you want to keep, and the people that you want to continue to attract, even to investors that you want to bring into the organization. So mission really does matter. So before I start talking about what I found out through my study, let's find out where you are. So go to the chat and type in a number from 1 to 5 about how big a priority social and environmental impact is in your organization. Type 1 if it's not a priority, up to 5 if it's high priority. And if you need to split the numbers, if social is higher or lower than environmental, just put S and a number, and E and a number for social and environmental. And let us know where you are as I continue to share what we found. So the companies that I talked to are
Gail, apologies for interrupting, but would you mind, we just had a few people join us, so would you mind repeating that question for the chat box?
Sure. Yeah, sure. So I want to hear from each of you about where your business is in terms of your social and environmental impact. And so if you could go to the chat and let us know how big of a priority social and environmental impact is in your organization. So 1 is not a priority, up to 5 is high priority. And if you need to split those two, 1 is higher than another. So some companies, the environmental took the lead over social and they're catching up with social. You can just type S and the number, S for social, or E for environmental and a number, and let us know where you are. Just so we all have a baseline about where we are and what's going on. So while you're doing that, I will continue talking about what I found. So the businesses that I talk to are in all different states of their own development and their own strategy. Nobody thinks this is unimportant. So in other words, everyone thinks that this is really important. And some people are more advanced than others. Some organizations are doing things very methodically. For some people, this is really woven into who they are. But I will tell you that the number one activity that businesses were talking about is how important community is to them. And the one thing that they're all doing is supporting employees out in their communities through volunteer activities, supporting a nonprofit that's important to them, or serving on a board of a nonprofit that's important to them. And this was, again, a number one activity. The employee picks something that really resonates for them, whether it's a nonprofit charity or a house of worship, or the board that they're serving on. So it depends what they're interested in doing. And then the organization, the employer, supports that employee in taking that time off, and also supports the organization when the employee comes to the employer and says, hey, they're having a gala, I want you to buy a table, or I want you to sponsor the event, or whatever. So this is fantastic. This is awesome. But here is also the flip side of that kind of engagement. Again, I think it's great. I don't want you to stop doing that. But here is the flip side. Some of the organizations that have this kind of activity have no brand identity around particular causes. So there's a danger, there's a risk that the organization is seen as sort of riding on the backs of employees and not having its own mission that it is committed to. So some organizations take that work and go a step further. And it was actually surprising how few organizations really had clear visions and clear strategies. But here's one organization that happens to be a supporter of Habitat for Humanity of Montgomery and Delaware counties, which is Clemens Food Group. And I had a great conversation with Brian Moyer, who's the head of facilities, and Craig Etzel, the CEO of the organization. And here's how they have taken that approach and that strategy to another level. So the Clemens, of course, supports their employees throughout their communities. Community is a really important word and a concept, as you can see from this screenshot from their website. And they support community wherever they are, which is primarily Eastern Pennsylvania, but they also have operations in Michigan. But they also have supported employees who have ties to distant locations. So for example, they have a couple Haitian employees, and when Haiti had an earthquake a couple years ago, the employees came to leadership and said, hey, we really want to support our families and communities back in Haiti through this disaster relief. And Clemens didn't miss a beat and did support the organization, or support whatever the organization was that was working in Haiti to provide support. And then from there, the organization supports a lot of different types of organizations within communities. So one of the things that Brian talked about that he loves about Habitat for Humanity of Montgomery and Delaware counties is he, as the lead, as the head of the department that's in charge of, the facilities and maintenance, has a big team that have great skills. And he said sometimes organizations put together these day-long activities and they they get their work done in an hour, and then there's nothing else for them to do. Whereas Habitat is able to put together really rich, meaningful day-long projects where they really leverage and take advantage of all of these skills and expertise and manpower that that Clemens team has. And they're able to work on these really big day-long projects and really benefit from it, benefit from the interactions with employees that may not ever work together, and they really get a lot of things accomplished. So they were really, Brian just went on and on about how excited he was about Habitat and the work that it's doing. And he got involved with Habitat at a time for him where his primary activity in the community was supporting and coaching some of the sports activities that his kids were involved in. Now they're older and he had lots of time available. And so he is really happy to be involved with Habitat. So they volunteer in a couple different ways, but you can see that Clemens, again, another screenshot from their website, they're not just supporting employees. There's a lot that they're really involved with as well. For example, environmental issues. They're really big supporters of water conservation. They recently invested, I think they said $3 million in solar panels to leverage all this real estate that they had and the roofs that they had to try to overturn their dependence on fossil fuels. They're big supporters of family farms, of animal welfare, of their staff members' wellness, plus a lot of other things that aren't even listed here. So they've got a lot going on in this organization. And in addition to that, they're really committed to donating 10% of their profits to different charities in the organization, in the places where they serve, ranging from food to Habitat for Humanity and affordable housing issues, firemen, policemen, et cetera, so that their communities where they are really strong. So this is a really great example of how you can take your organization from the basic activities, and which are nothing, they're important activities, but you can take it to another level and start to get known for something. I want to talk about a few trends about why this is so important. Number one, there's all kinds of data about what is going on and what is in the hearts and minds of CEOs across the country. Deloitte issued a study of their private business owners back at the end of 2021. And you can see here that purpose, which is very closely related to building trust, is really important to businesses. Just if you look right here, these medium resilient companies, 70% are focused on purpose. When businesses are even more resilient, it bumps up to 84%. And companies that are a little bit lower in resilience, it's still almost 50% of them are focused on purpose as well. So this is really something that a lot of businesses over the course of time are more and more invested in for a lot of different reasons, but private businesses don't have government regulations as one of their reasons. The Edelman PR's Edelman Trust Barometer is a really fascinating study with a lot of longevity, and they've been charting the public's view of 4 institutions in our culture: government, media, nonprofits, and businesses. And this study gets a lot of critique. I think it's still, even with critique, it's still a valuable sort of snapshot of where we are. Not surprisingly, government and media are seen as less trustworthy than nonprofits and business. Businesses have not always been seen as trustworthy. Back during the Great Recession, businesses really dipped to very, very big lows. But one of the recommendations in this year's study that I thought was really fascinating, that's germane to our discussion today, is that nonprofits and businesses can act as stabilizing forces in our communities to help break up the cycles of distrust. And if you look at this double access chart, nonprofits are seen as highly ethical, businesses are seen as more competent. And so the combination of the two can be a really great force for good in our communities. And I've been working on nonprofit for-profit collaborations for over 30 years. I've never been more excited with all the potential that's out there for creating change. Some of the changes that have been with us forever, for as long as I've been alive. So this is the time for putting your heads together, working with great organizations like Habitat for Humanity of Montgomery and Delaware County, which is really tackling really foundational issues in our culture that make huge differences. And there's a great team of people behind it. Another trend that I'm sure I don't have to remind any of you about, you're all looking to attract younger generations into your workforces to bring this talent along. We hear about this all the time, but it bears repeating that this is from an article in Triple Pundit. Unlike previous generations, Gen Z does not want corporate America to talk about all the good it's doing. They want corporate America to be about it. So talking about all the good it's doing is not the same as talking about what you are doing. There's a big difference in communications that I see organizations putting out there that says, you know, we really support women, or we really support, you know, racial equity. But then you look at the website and there are no women in leadership power, you know, leadership roles, or there are no people of color in leadership roles. That's the conflict that Gen Z in this quote are talking about it. So they want you to have this kind of mission commitment, this commitment to values woven into your DNA in whatever way is best for you. Remember that because distrust is so high right now, our BS detectors are also really high. So there's no checking boxes. There's no blah, blah, blah kind of marketing that's going to be permissible right now. And it's not a great idea to have blinders on for, you know, for other ways that you could be doing things and ignoring what these all of us, it's not even just Gen Z or the millennials, all of us can see that is going on in your organization. Remember that we get to decide, we as consumers, we as business partners, we as investors, we as employees and potential employees, we get to decide if we love and trust your company. So having this alignment between what you're saying is important and what you're doing is really critical. And that leads us to this strategy that I help clients with, which is money and mission. It looks a little bit different with nonprofits versus for-profits, but it's the same concept that who you are, what you're saying is important to you is reflected in your business practices and activities. So I want to take you through 3 steps and how you can improve what you're doing and think about this in a more strategic way. So it's not just activities out there. You're really not only having a better strategy that will lead to becoming a beloved brand, but will help you with this integrity and this alignment, and will help you or help your nonprofit partners really make a bigger impact in the world. So think about, not every company needs to be all about mission. And so I have created this continuum ranging from, on the left-hand side, businesses that have no mission, which I'm not encouraging at all, to businesses on the right-hand side of your screen that have very high mission integration. So these are companies like Patagonia, like Ben and Jerry's, like locally TerraCycle. There's no question when you walk into the TerraCycle offices with its soda bottle love beads dividing different sections of their offices, or their furniture that is remade out of, in this case, old fire extinguishers as the base for their table. There is no question that their mission is about eliminating the idea of waste in our society. And that is all that they do. And that's all that they talk about. So again, back here, you don't have to be that same kind of a company. A community-oriented company is one that I've described it this morning. The companies like banks and insurance companies and architectural firms and so on might be great community-oriented companies. But the thing is, you want to dive a little bit deeper and make commitments around what you really support. The thing is, we all know that when everything is a priority, then nothing is a priority. You can't move everything forward a mile if you're spread really thin. So you want to focus on where you can move something forward a mile. There are 1.6 million nonprofit organizations across the country. The last I checked, you can't do everything. So pick those charitable organizations or pick those causes that are going to really be the most meaningful for your organization and drive those forward no matter where you are. And I'm going to talk about what these other spots on this continuum relate to. The next step, once you've made a commitment, is you also want to think about how you are going to communicate and leverage this location on this continuum. And so I've taken the same information, except the no mission people, and put it onto a double axis chart of high and low mission and high and low leveraging. So a company like TerraCycle that I just mentioned, or Patagonia, has high mission integration. That means it's really woven into their DNA. And that's what they talk about all the time. Tom Zaki, who founded TerraCycle, talks about this idea that we can eliminate the idea of waste all the time. He's written numerous books. He's been in a film. He has, I don't know if he still has it, but he had a blog on the New York Times. He speaks all over the world. He has a huge social media following. They invest heavily in PR to talk about this mission. Patagonia is the same way. Again, not every company needs to be in this location. But even if your organization is community oriented, where mission commitment is low and leveraging is low, you can still raise your profile to closer to higher mission and closer to better leveraging that. And I'll tell you that working with an organization like Habitat for Humanity of Montgomery and Delaware counties that has a great team, that wants its partners to succeed, that has a lot of different capabilities, ranging from the team that puts these volunteer projects together, the team that has marketing capability, the team that executes everything or imagines and envisions these different strategies for its partners. They can help you with some of this leverage activity if it still feels too uncomfortable for you. So make sure that you're working with great partners. So again, let's go back to the chat. I didn't even look at the current chat. Let's see where we are. So let's see where everybody is in terms, so everyone is in 5 in terms of their commitment levels. Now let's talk about where everybody is in terms of where you are on this double axis chart. Quadrant 1 being internally purposeful, meaning that you leverage internal capabilities for a particular purpose. So here GSK is really committed and invests in its expertise in vaccinations, for example, and works with Save the Children. High mission integration I've talked about community oriented. And then I've also marketing for mission are companies that might launch a new product and donate part of the proceeds from that launch to a charity, or have a periodic engagement with a charitable organization, but tend to be a little bit lower in mission. So again, no right and wrong about where you are, just pick where you are, and you can go to the chat and let us know that. All right, we're going to keep going here while you go to the chat. Then the third step that we want to talk about, so we talked about committing, we talked about how you're going to communicate, and then the next thing we need to talk about is how you're going to operationalize these commitments, how the tactical plan, if you will, which should also and can also include collaboration. So you've got a lot of different places within your organization that can be involved with these charitable organizations or with causes. So in your foundation, in the philanthropic side of your organization, you've got corporate giving and strategic philanthropy. Through your HR department, you've got volunteerism or various initiatives through diversity, equity, and inclusion that not only supports diversity, equity, and inclusion within your organization, but also in your communities. There's a lot that can be happening through the partners that you're working with and through other activities you may develop as well. Through your operations, you can be thinking about CSR. You can think about your supply chain. You can think about purchased services and how you can have an impact through purchasing, R&D and innovations. So thinking about ways that your organization can have an impact there. We can look at marketing and sales. Cause marketing and corporate sponsorship are areas that where you can engage with organizations and also drive business for your, in terms of marketing and sales. And then there can be other partners that represent an exchange of value that your nonprofit partners like Habitat can help put together that weave a lot of these different areas in. There are some nonprofit organizations that actually have services that are appropriate for nonprofit businesses to offer to your business. So you can be thinking about that, which then also helps them drive revenue for their charitable, whatever their mission is as well. So there are all kinds of ways that you can operationalize the tactics that you have, that you're thinking about through the strategies that you're developing so that your social and environmental impact is bolder and stronger. So those are the three steps. And, you can just imagine, we don't have a lot of time together today, but you can just imagine that each one of these could be their own, full day workshops, but there's a lot going on here and a lot to think about. But the point is that enriching your strategy, having a clear vision, communicating about what that strategy is, having great partners, and thinking of all the ways throughout your organization that you can operationalize this will help you increase trust, increase integrity between what you're saying and what you're actually doing, and will build that reputation that you are a beloved brand that people want to work for and customers want to buy. And that's what is really important. So I'm going to pause for a second to see if there are any questions. If you want to reach out to me, I have a website, of course, and a couple blogs. You can reach out to me at any time with any questions, gail@gailbauer.com. Connect with me on Twitter or LinkedIn. I do have a newsletter, a regular e-newsletter, and I also have a special report that I would love to send to everybody. It gives you 6 ways that you can leverage your mission-driven collaborations. In this case, it's around corporate sponsorship. So everyone who is registered today, because I'm sure a lot of you are going to be watching this webinar later on as the recording or going back to it, but everyone who's registered today will receive this PDF and this little report. And if anybody wants the slides, I'm happy to share that with you as well. So let's pause here before I wrap up and before we hear from Janera, and let me answer your questions. Frank.
Okay, great. Can you hear me, Gail?
Yes, I can.
Oh, great. I think this would be for smaller non-for-profits as well as larger, and I'm sure the larger the organization, the greater the range of people and expertise in varied areas. But how do you suggest to a nonprofit, and maybe it depends on their budget, their operations, the revenues that they're generating, what types of ways to try to raise money, whether that be through events or through the continued outreach with their advocacy, and of course, whether that be an appeal aspects and some of the other things that may not involve an event or appeals, and really more from a partnering situation. I heard that wonderful news this morning, or maybe it was yesterday, that organization designated a large donation. I'm not sure for what areas in particular, for Habitat for Humanity. And again, being one way of having a wonderful windfall come to an organization, but just trying to get an idea. And again, it may depend on the size. So I'm just curious for all, and for any of us that have, have a small foundation involved with, maybe doing an event. And of course, these past couple of years, we've not been able to do an event. And that was the way we would raise our money. And it was called American Friends of Italy. And when we raised those funds, we came up with the most important, the events and organizations that are involved with youth, and the challenges even on education of youth too. So, but I'm just curious, and maybe I'd like to hear other input from anyone else in addition to yourself. Just how does one determine, how they segment what it is? And maybe in some situations I've heard where companies maybe do too many events and it does exhaust the personnel and the people within an organization. In essence, you have that turnover. And again, we only are as good as the amount of community and the tribal relationships we have with our employees. And of course, the volunteer network,
Yeah.
the biggest.
Yeah, that's a really big question.
I know, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
No,
be.
no, 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 don't, no,
This
no,
was a
don't
lot in my
apologize.
mind, and being on
Yeah,
the side of a nonprofit, that's why I'm
yeah.
also asking that
No,
question.
it's a really great question. So let me, because it's fresh in my mind, let me answer the last question first. So yeah, you do run a risk from a business perspective in sort of diluting the impact that you're able to have. I remember the marketing director of a bank in our region said, gosh, we support about 200 nonprofit organizations, and we contribute, or we give $50 to $2,000, but we don't really understand the impact that we're having from a sponsorship perspective. And I said, was like, sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but $50 to $2,000, you're not really a sponsor, you're making contributions. And you're not really, at $50, you're not, it's great to support the organization at any level, but that isn't going to have a really big impact. We all know the cost of what it takes to run a business of any sort. It's a lot more than that. So to me, 200 gifts at those kinds of increments, it might be better to focus on a few and really have a bigger impact than otherwise. In terms of how organizations, how I work with organizations to help figure out how they should generate revenue, that starts with really thinking about an organization's business model. And I don't want to get into too much detail, but you have to think about the organization's business model. What are the drivers for that organization's business? And also, really what is the organization trying to accomplish? And what is the expertise of an organization as well? So there can be lots of different ways that an organization can generate revenue. And the organization will want to start with forms of revenue where they have the most expertise. So for example, I just finished working with another organization that has it's in the performing arts field. And so earned revenue is a natural for them. They already generate earned revenue. So helping them figure out better ways to do that. But then they also have, in terms of assets, they have access to people with great wealth. So I recommended that instead of moving to corporate sponsorship, which is of interest to them, and that's my area of expertise, they're not really ready for corporate sponsorship. But if they develop better capacity to work with individual donors, and especially major donors, they have a better chance of generating that revenue. So it's really looking at the business model of the organization, the expertise of the organization, and how it can best leverage its expertise and what the organization does and its mission to find what the right revenue sources are. And I do think a lot of organizations struggled with events. And I think also many organizations seem to be wanting to bring those back in coming up. Hopefully we won't have another surge. So does that help give you some
Yes.
couple strands to work with?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Any other any other questions? So we have some more, let's see, let's see, oh, there is another question. Okay. So some other people, so some people are quadrant one. So 3 people in quadrant 1. Okay, good. And so here's another question. So in your interviews, what barriers do businesses face when embarking on a philanthropic program? Is there something nonprofits assume incorrectly when they approach businesses for support? Well, I don't think some of the things that organizations noted to me were, wait, I'm trying to find my, there we go. Sorry, I couldn't find my cursor. The screen was right in my path. So I think one of the things that I think is an opportunity for two things that I think is an opportunity for nonprofits. One is that organizations feel very shy about marketing what they're doing. And I think this is really interesting. And I think it harkens back to what I was talking about earlier about, you don't want to, people don't want to be braggadocious, but bragging is very different from communicating about what they're actually doing. I mean, Brian and Craig from Clemens Food Groups talked about this. And one of the things that they are focused on is how can they communicate more internally so that more of their employees know what they're doing, because sometimes they'll, Brian was saying that he's talked to other people in other departments, and the employees are thinking, wow, I didn't even know that we were doing this. So if you don't tell anybody, how is anyone going to know? As a business advisor of mine said, if you don't toot your horn, there is no music. So helping businesses, showcase what they're doing, show what they're doing in terms of visual assets and video and so on and so forth, and helping them do a better job talking about what they're doing, but not in terms of, oh, isn't bank XYZ great because they're doing this? It's like, help them talk about what they're doing in the context of your mission and how they're helping to resolve your mission. So I think that's one. The other thing that I think is really important is a lot of businesses noted what I'm going to call, they want to be the big fish in a smaller pond. So they are looking to collaborate with nonprofit organizations, but they don't have bazillion-dollar budgets. So I think there's a fear that if they contribute, it's going to be seen as just a little bit of money. So they're focused on smaller organizations so that their dollars can have a greater impact. So for an organization like Habitat, for example, there is Habitat International, the big Habitat. But then, as we know, there are all these different chapters doing all kinds of great work right here on the ground. So I would say emphasizing that the organization is really focused here, and how your dollars, no matter how big or small, can really have a really big impact, and show what that impact can be. Show what what a 3-digit, a 4-digit, a 5-digit, a 6-digit contribution to the organization can do in terms of making a really big impact, and helping them talk about what that impact is, and really having more tentacles, not only in the community, but also within the organization. Does that answer your question, Rebecca? I'll assume you're good unless you ask more. Okay. All right. So I thought somebody was saying something. Okay. All right. So we're going to close up today. I want to thank everyone at Habitat for Humanity. Oh, good. Thanks, Rebecca. Great. I want to thank everyone at Habitat for Humanity of Montgomery and Delaware counties for everything that you did to make today's event possible. Everyone will get the link to the recording. And again, if you want the slides, that's fine. And I'll send everybody who's registered that white paper that I talked about, and plus keep you posted for future news that I have with this study that I'm working on. Just in summary, I want you to really think about this challenge and take to heart how important this really good work is, and how by taking, with absolutely no capital investment, taking what you're doing a few steps further to deepen what you're doing, to enlarge what you're doing, to talk more about what you're doing, can have a really great impact in your community. So this money and mission strategy, first, figure out what your strategy is. What is your vision about your community? Where are you on this continuum that you're going to commit? You don't have to do everything. We've got, again, millions of nonprofits out there doing the committing. So you have to just find great partners. Where can you then strengthen your leverage of these activities and your collaborations and find great partners that you can work with to take this work even further? And then how can you take action and see results so that you become a more beloved brand, a more trusted brand, a brand that easily attracts talent and clients, that generates eventually more profitable revenue? How can you enhance your reputation and again, become a brand that people love, a place of work that's more human, that is more trusted, that is more beloved? And how can you gain the kind of leadership and the guidance that you need to become this kind of a brand? Thank you very much. And I hope this is helpful for all of you. And Janera, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Gail. And thank you everyone for joining us today. We are thrilled that we were able to have Gail talk about these partnership opportunities, Habitat for Humanity. We are eager to be a good partner to our corporate entities and local businesses, because our work's not possible without you. So to give you just kind of a quick overview, like these are some of the opportunities that we like to present to everyone. We have got our Habitat Build Days. It's a team build day. It's wonderful for team building. It starts at 8:30 with donuts, a safety briefing, and then you literally pick up hammers, pick up paintbrushes, and help a home come to fruition for a family. And we also have our Almost Home Financial Empowerment Program. So overall, we have a skill for, or we have a job for every skill. And Almost Home Financial Empowerment is perfect example of that. It is a virtual volunteer opportunity that can also have in-person components. And you are working with folks who want to be future homeowners or future Habitat homeowners. It's kind of one of our first steps in the process. So you would be coaching with them one-on-one, helping them go through their financial situation, understand it, and then set goals. And in addition to that, we've got neighborhood revitalization, which is part of our wanting everyone to have safe, decent, stable communities and homes to live in. And Rock the Block is our largest volunteer extension of that, which is happening this April 23rd, day after Earth Day. And we have 3 neighborhood revitalization zones in both of our counties happening right here locally with hopefully over 350 volunteers. And then the one that is probably our biggest volunteer need and that we are always looking for folks is our amazing restores. So Habitat Restores, they help upcycle items that are lightly, gently used, either construction or furniture. It's dangerous working here. I'm always looking at a new couch. But those are mainly run by volunteers. Like we have some full-time staff, but like the volunteers is the fuel that makes that machine work. That is our retail arm. And that retail arm funds 50% of what our mission is, home building. So if your company believes that everyone in your community here in Montgomery and Delaware counties deserves a safe, affordable, healthy place to live, we are a brand that will help show that you're leading with humanity by joining us. So.
Yeah, I thank everyone for coming. Thank you so much, Gail, for this presentation. You've given me an awful lot to think about. And I feel like this is a great first step. I cannot wait for your book. So be sure to give us the skinny on that as we continue to communicate moving forward. Thank you, Janera, for helping put all of this together today. And I think this is a great first conversation that is well beyond you, because everyone has that commitment, wants to do something, but getting it off the ground. Thank you for helping us think in a bigger way about this and how we can come together to make that impact in our community. So Appreciate you so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you all.